Tennis player Naomi Osaka threw a party for black tennis players, and white folk got mad. If you don't believe me, I have the receipts. Go ahead and follow this page. I am about to break something down. Tennis player Naomi Osaka got people's knickers in a bunch on Saturday because she had the audacity to throw a party and a lot of folks didn't get the invite. But before we get into people's hurt feelings, let's talk a little bit about why these kinds of gatherings are so necessary and how isolating tennis has been. All right. Tennis is one of the most racially homogenous professional sports in the world. That means there are a lot of people that are the same race playing tennis. The country clubs, the lily white grand slam traditions, the dress codes, the culture, all of it has historically signaled loudly and clearly that this sport was not built for us. That means black people. Althea Gibson broke the color barrier in tennis in 1956 when she became the first black player to compete at Wimbledon. She won Wimbledon in 1957 and 1958. She was the best player in the world, but she had to fight her way through the front door that wasn't supposed to open for her. The tennis establishment didn't celebrate her. They barely tolerated her. Imagine being Althea in 1956, 1957, and 1958. Imagine going out into that all-white area, the courts, and all of that, and not seeing any black faces really in the crowd. Who is patting her on the back? Who is rooting for her? Who was telling her side of the story? Nobody. Well, then, some years later, you got Arthur Ashe. He was the first black man to win the U.S. Open in 1968. But even at the height of his fame, Arthur Ashe said something that is absolutely mind-blowing. He told Sports Illustrated, and I quote, "It's an abnormal world I live in. I don't belong anywhere. It's like I'm floating down the middle." That quote is from someone who won Wimbledon, a man who won 3 Grand Slams, and he still didn't feel like he belonged. Now, was that something personal that Arthur Ashe was doing, or was that in fact the institution of tennis? Then came my girls, y'all know who, Venus and Serena Williams, 2 girls from Compton who were trained on public courts and went on to dismantle every assumption the tennis world ever had about who could be great. And what did they get in return? Years of scrutiny about their bodies, their hair, their looks, their attitude, their dad. Serena Williams, the greatest player of all time, spent the better part of 3 decades defending her body, her looks, and her humanity in a sport she single-handedly elevated. So here's the pattern. Black players show up, they dominate, and then the institution does absolutely everything it can to make them feel like they don't belong. Now, I don't know why Naomi threw the party, but perhaps Naomi was channeling the spirit of Arthur Ashe, or maybe Althea Gibson. Let's get into Naomi before we get into this party that I'm going to get invited to one day. All right. Naomi is half Japanese and half Italian. Her father was inspired by watching Venus and Serena compete at the French Open, and he began training his daughters on public courts, right? But in Japan, she faced discrimination as a mixed race child. She once said, quote, "When I go to Japan, people are confused. From my name, they don't expect to see a black girl." She represents Japan professionally, but she is also unmistakably black. She is also deeply American in her upbringing. She carries all of that on every court, at every press conference, in every post. And I think this is why she has such a unique perspective to want to connect and to bring people together. So now, let's get to the party. I'm going to give y'all a photo. I'm going to show y'all that party photo for a second. Okay? So that's the chocolateness that was up at the party. On Saturday, May 23rd, 2026, the night before the main draw of the French Open got underway at Roland Garros, Naomi Osaka and fellow player TT, Taylor Townsend, co-hosted a dinner at Soho House in Paris. They called it a black party. They gathered the black players on tour. Attending were Coco Gauff, the defending French Open champion, Gael Monfils, Asia Muhammad, and former player turned commentator Christopher Eubanks. Osaka posted pictures on Instagram and shared a message about the significance of the gathering. This is one of the pictures I put on screen, right? And she shared the significance of the gathering and talked about what it means to be a minority in this sport, about gratitude, about the sense of brotherhood, and what she felt being in that room. She described it as a celebration of how far black players have come in a sport that was not designed with them in mind. And then, as predictably as the morning traffic is, the criticism came. Critics asked why other players weren't invited. People asked, what if someone had an all-white party? Online commenters called it exclusionary. The framing in some media coverage suggested something problematic about a race-specific gathering. But let me blow your mind really quick. None of these critics asked, why would black players need this kind of gathering in the first place? That question didn't come up. And that really tells you everything. Why would a bunch of black players in an elite all-white sport or predominantly white sport want to connect and build and encourage each other? I mean, I can't think of one reason. But here, Osaka, who I love so much, she fires back in her own words. She didn't stay quiet. She responded on social media and addressed it directly in her Roland Garros press conference. And I want to read to you some of what she said because she said it better than any commentator. Quote, on the all-white party argument, she said, quote, I'm seeing a little bit of, why can't you love everyone for all skin tones? And what if someone had an all-white party? First of all, I do love everyone for who they are, no matter their race. To those who raise this question, I also want to ask this question. What bothers you so much about POC coming together? Now, I would imagine that people who have friends, whether they're playing in whatever sport, they probably have a group of friends that they like and they hang out with, and they probably look alike. I don't know. They probably do. And there's no outrage about this. Maybe they're at the Red Lobster, who knows? But nobody is saying anything about it. But when she says, what bothers you about POC coming together? That's a question. Because a lot of people get together with their friends of the same race and nobody says anything. So it's very interesting, something for us to sit with as to why this is a problem, because Naomi and Taylor threw a party. And then she closed with this, and I want to put this up on the screen as well. Let me take off the party photo for you guys. And see, I'm going to put this, I'm going to put the abbreviated version, which is, there are multiple things I will apologize for in my life, but being black isn't one of them. That is the Cliff Note version. But let me give you the actual full quote that she said. She said, I want to end this by saying, I grew up watching my dad get discriminated against, having the cops called on him multiple times at the tennis court. There are multiple things I will apologize for in my life, but celebrating being black and appreciating who we are will never be something I would consider saying sorry for. Thanks. Actually, I lied. I am sorry. I'm sorry for the people who cannot comprehend in their brains that this is not about exclusion. This is a celebration about how far we have come. Notice in her statement, she talks about her father who had cops called on him at a tennis court, right? So when you start talking about or wondering, why would black players need to have a dinner where they're encouraging each other, where they're saying to each other, do your best, I'm rooting for you. Why would they need that? When you wonder that, remember, she saw her father have the cops called on him. So this is real history for Naomi, right? This is her childhood. She grew up, dominated the sport, that they treated her family like a threat. And then she had the audacity to say, you know what? I'm going to get a few people who look like me and we're going to have a party. We're going to fellowship together. We're going to build community. How dare we do that? That's what we're talking about. But this is what I say. I believe Naomi was giving a masterclass in what you should do when you feel isolated, when you feel excluded, when you feel that your family has been threatened. You go and you build community with people who undoubtedly have gone through the same thing. That's what you do. You don't go and isolate yourself. You build a table for other people to join. Right? You build a community. You don't build a wall. You build a bridge. You don't build a wall. And that's why we just have to honor her today. So the media also, why is she perfect to do this? She's perfect to do this because the media has been hard on Naomi, and that is documented. There have been years of public criticism that have been done to this woman. So when I first heard this story and I heard that she was, gathering other black tennis players, I was like, she's like, I'm not going through this by myself anymore. And I was internally rejoicing because, again, sometimes we're looking for our people out here, but sometimes you got to create the table and you got to invite people to take a seat, right? Now, we cannot talk enough about why black safe spaces matter without talking about the cumulative weight of what Naomi Osaka, we cannot talk about black safe matters, black space mattering without talking about the cumulative weight of what Naomi Osaka has been put through. And I'm going to go through a little bit of a timeline, you guys, and share with you what she has gone through, because she's gone through a lot. In 2021, Naomi Osaka, who was the number 2 player in the world, four-time Grand Slam champion, highest paid female athlete on the planet, announced that she would not be participating in mandatory press conferences at the French Open. She explained that media appearances caused her huge waves of anxiety. She had disclosed privately and then publicly that she had been suffering from depression since 2018, since the 2018 U.S. Open. So again, in 2021, she tells us about it, comes out, but she has been dealing with it since 2018. So that's 3 years. And what was the response for her disclosure, right? The French Open fined her $15,000 and threatened to disqualify her from the tournament. Not a conversation, not a check-in, a fine and a threat. Let that, sink in your mind for just a moment, right? Like, she's coming to you, she's telling you, and I'm sure you can have receipts if you've gone to the doctor, if you've gone to therapy, if you've been given medication, right? You have the receipts, and they're like, oh, you're not doing the press conferences. Here's a fine for $15,000. But let me blow your mind yet again. Roger Federer withdrew from that same tournament that year, citing physical injury. He was granted an official medical exemption. No fine, no threat. Roger Federer, who we like, no problems with Roger. But he was able to cite a physical injury, didn't get any fine, didn't get any threat. She talks about a mental health, something that she's been going through, and she gets the fine and a threat. Okay, so you're wondering, why is she throwing a party to create a safe space and support for people who look like her? I don't know. This might be a clue. Naomi Osaka's mental health was not treated like health. It was treated like an inconvenience. Hello. It was treated like an inconvenience. Now, she eventually withdrew from the tournament entirely. And this is what she said at the time. The truth is that I have suffered long bouts of depression since the U.S. Open in 2018. And I've had a really hard time coping with that. Now, you guys, can you imagine how hard it is to go, and as an athlete, they put you up on this pedestal. The bar is so high. They want to act like you're supposed to be perfect. And you come out and you say, you know what? As a matter of fact, for 3 years, I've already been dealing with depression, right? That wasn't easy. But even then, even in the announcement of her withdrawal, where she was vulnerable and honest or what have you, the media, the lovely media, there were people who called her coddled, who questioned her legitimacy, and who said she wasn't tough enough for the sport. Sound familiar? I just talked about that with Angel Reese, with Serena Williams, with Gabby Douglas. Who am I forgetting? There's somebody else I'm forgetting, but there's Simone Biles. Okay, they want us to show up, be extraordinary, then they dare you to say you're struggling, right? And then the media profits off of tearing your image apart for the world to see. This is the pattern that we're talking about today for Black women in sports. Okay? This is what we're talking about today. Now, we saw it with Serena, who was fined at the 2018 U.S. Open for arguing with an umpire. The same behavior that is routinely ignored when male players do it. And she was caricatured in an Australian newspaper in a grotesquely racist cartoon that the publication defended. You know, we saw it with Simone Biles at the Tokyo Olympics. She had made a medically sound decision to protect herself from a dangerous gymnastics era called the twisties and was called a quitter, a coward, and unpatriotic. Naomi Osaka and what she has gone through and what she has communicated fits directly into this pattern. Black women in elite sports are not allowed to be human. They are expected to perform, produce, and then shut up. And when they don't, the media engine, the media machine cranks up and tears them down. Now, this is time for us to get real. And so that's why, for me personally, I was glad that she threw a party, right? Because she has seen the support that she needs for herself. And what she did was say, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do for everybody else. That's what it feels like to me. The party was a support solution. So let's just call it that. I think the evidence supports that the dinner at Soho House was not just a celebration, it was a lifeline. It was a lifeline. Naomi Osaka has openly struggled with isolation, social anxiety, and a loneliness being in a sport that not a lot of us personally in the general public are familiar with, but Serena is, Venus is, Arthur Ashe is, right? Althea Gibson, she was as well. This is one of the few places where a black person goes and it's like they're like one of one. Okay, in a professionally white environment. She has spoken out about wearing headphones to dull overstimulation. She has talked about how press conferences have made her feel like she was bullied. She built a wall around herself to protect herself from an industry who kept trying to tear her down without caring if she was okay or not. This is important. This is why this matters. Because when you are a professional tennis player and you are black and you're in these environments and you don't feel the support, what are you supposed to do? And so she's in a space that's not built for her, not built for the other players. And what does she do? She builds a table. And what's very interesting, since I've started my channel and have really been doing stories on sports a lot and just different things, people tear down athletes for sport. They tear them down for profit, no matter what their struggle is, no matter what they're going through, no matter how much excellence they may have given us year after year after year. You have people in the media machine that are simply tearing athletes down for profit. So I feel like it's a wonderful thing that she went to find her people. And let me say this, gathering the black players in Paris before the biggest clay court grand slam of the year, it wasn't just a party, y'all. It was Naomi saying, you are not alone on this tour. I see you. Let's breathe together, right? Let's fellowship together for a night before we go back out there. And there's a well-documented psychological concept behind this. It's the importance of affinity spaces for people who are minorities in an environment, whether it's a workplace, a school, or a professional sports tour. Having spaces that center your shared experience is not exclusionary. It's therapeutic. It's necessary. It's how you survive environments that were designed for someone else. I know this is a sore spot because some people don't understand, like, if I don't relate to you and you don't relate to me, why would I feel comfortable sitting among a bunch of people who don't look like me? There is research behind affinity spaces. But this is what I loved about this story and learning this, is that Naomi built the table that she herself needed. The information that I gave you about her history, about the things that she had gone through, about her bouts of depression. One of the things that in being in therapy for many years, having support, building support when you feel good helps you so that when you feel down, you have people to call. You have people to lean on. And she did that for herself, and she did it for other players. She didn't wait for the WTA to create it. She didn't wait for Roland Garros to acknowledge the isolation. She picked up the phone, called her girl TT, and made it happen herself. This is not a controversial act at all. It is, in fact, leadership. And then after Taylor and Naomi got on the phone, they was like, yo, who else we going to invite to the party so that we can communicate and connect and link up? And so before we wrap, I want to just share a few other things about this. The all-white party argument. I want to take a moment to address that because it comes up every single time Black people gather with intention. You always going to hear somebody say, well, what if all the white people did the same thing? And I want to speak to this as it relates to tennis specifically, because here's the reality. The all-white party in tennis, it already happened. It was called tennis from roughly 1900 to 1956. That was the all-white party in tennis. It was called the All England Club before Althea Gibson broke the barrier. It was called the private country club circuit that Black families in Richmond couldn't access when Arthur Ashe was growing up. Context is everything. When Black people come together in affinity, it is an act of community building in response to a long history of being excluded. When dominant groups gather exclusively, it is the reproduction of that exclusion. These are not equivalent situations. Treating them as equivalent in itself is a form of bad faith. And here's a fact. The all-white party collapses the moment we introduce any history. And history is the whole point. And let's do something different today. Let's honor Naomi Osaka, right? For a moment as the athlete she is, because the criticism often just flattens her into this headline and forgets to mention what she's actually done. And let's honor her for creating a table so that other players could sit along and have a shared experience. Why don't we, right? But let's talk about what she's actually done for a moment. 4 Grand Slam titles. The 2018 and the 2020 US Open. The 2019 and the 2021 Australian Open. She was the first Japanese player, man or woman, to be ranked number 1 in the world. She was, at her peak, the highest paid female athlete on the planet. She took time away from her sport to have her daughter Shai born in July 2023. She came back. She battled injuries. She kept showing up. At this year's French Open, She enters it with renewed focus training under Coach Tamaz, with a first round matchup against a lady named Laura Sigmund. I don't know her. She is finding her footing on clay again, and she is still there. But this is what I want you guys to know. This is what I want us to hold on to for her. This is a woman who has been vulnerable. This is a woman who has been vulnerable publicly, who has been dragged publicly, who has been fined, threatened, caricatured, and she is still here. She is still standing. And perhaps most importantly, she's still building community and using her platform with intention. So here's somebody who doesn't just compete. She insists on existing fully. And to me, that is the part about Naomi that has bothered people the most. And in case I get my invite next year, anything could happen. Let's talk about for a moment those folks that you see in the photo. Because this was more than a vibe, y'all. This was a generational moment. Coco Gauff, the defending French Open champion, one of the most dominant players in women's tennis right now, still in her early 20s, just a babe, navigating the same pressures Osaka has faced. So you just imagine, what is a conversation like between Naomi and Coco Gauff and, say, Taylor Townsend? They are able to all talk about the pressure, the training, the support, everything that they're going through. You need that as you are climbing and growing in your career. Gael Monfils was there at the party, a veteran of the ATP Tour, one of the most magnetic performers in men's tennis. He's a black man who has navigated a predominantly white professional environment for 2 decades. So again, him being a part of the ATP Tour for 2 decades, he's like a senior statesman that can tell folks, okay, watch out for this, watch out for that. This person is supportive. This other person, not so supportive. You need an elder statesman at your table. Okay, let's keep it 100. Taylor Townsend, who I affectionately call TT, that's my girl. She is Osaka's co-host and an accomplished professional who has spoken openly about her own experience with body shaming and bias in tennis. So again, we hear about women feeling like they're body shamed. This lady is a professional tennis player, and she's being body shamed while being a professional tennis player. So again, why do they need to communicate and share their experiences? Because they want to get stronger. They want to talk to someone who can relate to what they're going through, and they want to keep growing. Another person, Asia Muhammad. She's a doubles specialist with a long WTA career, another face of what Black excellence looks like day to day. And so again, she's a doubles person. I don't know if everybody on this that we listed does doubles, but Venus and Serena would do doubles, and I believe Venus was doing doubles even after for a long time. So a doubles specialist, again, somebody who's relatable. And finally, Christopher Eubanks, a former player turned media figure. He's someone who represents the broadening of Black experience in tennis just beyond the court. This was not a random group of people, you guys. This is a community. This is what it looks like when a few Black professionals on one of the most exclusive circuits says, tonight we see each other. Tonight we break bread. Tonight we smile, we laugh, we share experiences. Now, let's marinate on that. This is what Black tennis looks like. Not a threat, not an exclusion, but a community. I am personally proud of Naomi Osaka and what she did Saturday night in Paris, because to me, it wasn't controversial at all. It was logical. It was human. It was the behavior of someone who had gone through years of dealing with probably difficulties of her own that she has publicly addressed, and creating a space to help other people, to be the type of support that she may have needed. The media in professional sports is a hostile environment. And instead of it getting better, it seems to be getting worse. And so I see Naomi Osaka as creating the village that she needs. That's to be commended, not ridiculed and not criticized. And here's the thing. She didn't ask the WTA for a task force. She didn't write a think piece. She called her people, rented out a space, and said, hey, for one night, let's connect, let's break bread, let's talk, let's communicate. And the people who are mad about that, I want to ask you something. What are you exactly protecting? What is the threat? What did it cost you for these tennis players to all get together and have a meal at the Soho House? What did it cost you? If you think about it intently, and with intention, I think you will realize that it costs you nothing. It costs you nothing. What did it cost you for Naomi to sit in a room with Coco Gauff and say, I'm grateful for you. I'm glad to see you here. It did not cost you one thing. So this fake outrage is not about harm. It is about discomfort. Discomfort that Black people are getting comfortable in spaces where they have historically been unwelcome. That is really what the outrage, or like I call it, faux outrage, is really about. Because if Black folks stop being uncomfortable, they might feel like they start to belong. They might stop shrinking. But the gag is Naomi Osaka stopped shrinking a long time ago. I want you guys to remember this as we wrap up today. Her father had the cops called on him on a tennis court. She went on to become one of the 4 best female players in the history of the sport. She walked back into a space that haunted her family, and she built a table there. And then she had the nerve, the audacity, to sit at the table with her head held high and invite other people to sit with her. And that's why people are uncomfortable. But I'm not sorry for her. I'm proud of her. And if that bothers you, if a dinner party with some Black tennis players in Paris is the thing that keeps you up at night, I would gently suggest you hire a therapist ASAP. Because why? You can have your own dinner party. And I want to, as we close out, you guys, I want to say just a short thing about Coco Gauff, because this is an underrated angle in this story. But Coco Gauff was at the dinner, and she's a defending French Open champion. Now, not too long ago, she was just a teenager, and the tennis world was like, who is this youngster? And now she is the next generation, and she's looking up to the way Naomi looked up to Venus and Serena. The fact that these 2 women, Naomi and Coco, who are rivals on the court and in the community and life, basically, were both able to sit at the table, tells you something about where we are right now. The lineage is unbroken. The table keeps growing. And the people who want to dismantle it are fighting a losing battle against time. People could say, hey, why should they be able to sit and have a conversation and fellowship and build and share experiences? They are enemies or whatever. But you know what Naomi said, and Taylor said, and Coco said, and Asia said, and Gael, everybody said, let's take this night and let's come together and let's rally around each other. Divide and conquer is not going to work this go round. I would love to hear your comments. So that was certainly one to grow on. So let me know what you think, and I will see you next time. My name is Yasmin, and this was the Yasmin Breakdown. Peace.